Palak was the kind of girl people couldn't forget. She was breathtakingly beautiful, with soft, curly black hair cascading over her shoulders, warm, honey-brown eyes filled with kindness, and a smile so gentle it made children run toward her without fear. A final-year medical student, Palak was known not only for her beauty, but for her pure heart. She adored children more than anything, and wherever she went, laughter followed her like sunlight. When her university organized the medical camp in a remote, abandoned village hidden deep within the mountains, Palak volunteered immediately, along with her best friend Sana and a young doctor named Dr. Zayan, a calm, intelligent man who had secretly fallen in love with her long ago. The journey to the village felt strange from the beginning. As their jeep climbed through the fog-covered roads, the air grew colder, the forests darker, and the silence heavier. The village itself looked frozen in time. Old mud houses, broken lanterns hanging outside wooden doors, and villagers whose frightened eyes followed the newcomers everywhere they went. Yet despite the eerie atmosphere, Palak quickly became beloved among the children. Every day, little kids surrounded her, laughing as she treated their wounds, braided little girls' hair, and handed out chocolates hidden in her pockets. For the first time in weeks, she felt peaceful there. But one thing disturbed everyone in the village: the old abandoned mansion standing far beyond the forest. The villagers called it the Silent Koti. Even in daylight, it looked terrifying, its black, broken windows staring across the valley like dead eyes. Nobody went near it after sunset. One evening, while the students sat around a fire drinking tea, an old villager named Baba Rahim warned them in a trembling voice, "Never go near that mansion. Something lives there, something that wears human faces." The others laughed nervously, assuming it was just another village superstition, but Palak noticed genuine terror in the old man's eyes. Dr. Zayan took the warning seriously. Later that night, he quietly told her, "Promise me you won't wander around alone." Palak smiled teasingly. "Dr. Sahib, you worry too much." But deep inside, even she couldn't explain why the mansion made her uneasy. Days passed peacefully until one cold, rainy night changed everything forever. Most of the camp had fallen asleep while thunder echoed across the mountains. Palak sat outside talking to her mother on the phone, smiling softly while her mother lovingly scolded her for not eating properly. Distracted by the conversation, Palak unknowingly wandered farther away from the camp. Wet leaves crunched beneath her boots as she walked deeper into the fog-covered forest path. By the time the phone call ended, she froze in horror. She was standing directly in front of the abandoned mansion. The Silent Koti towered above her beneath flashes of lightning, looking less like a building and more like a living creature waiting in darkness. Then suddenly, she heard a voice, a low, painful groan from inside. "Help me." Palak's heartbeat quickened. "Who's there?" she called nervously. Silence followed. Then again, weak, trembling, desperate. "Please, help." Ignoring the fear crawling beneath her skin, Palak slowly pushed open the rusted gate and stepped inside. The mansion smelled of dust, rainwater, and something strangely sweet like dying flowers. A faint yellow light flickered somewhere upstairs. She followed it carefully until she entered a ruined room where she saw him. A young man sat beside an old fireplace holding his injured hand. The moment Palak saw him, she stopped breathing. He was impossibly beautiful, tall, pale, with messy black hair falling over sharp features and deep green eyes, unlike anything she had ever seen before. Those eyes glowed strangely in the darkness, ancient and hypnotic, carrying a sadness so deep it hurt to look at him. His hand was bleeding badly, but he stared at her as though he had been waiting for her all his life. "Who are you?" Palak whispered. The young man smiled faintly. "Aryan," he replied softly, "I've been watching you for days." A strange chill passed through her body. "Watching me?" Aryan tilted his head slowly, still smiling. "You never noticed me." Palak ignored the strange reply and carefully began cleaning his wound. His skin was freezing cold beneath her fingers, unnaturally cold, yet she couldn't pull away. Thunder roared outside while candlelight danced across Aryan's face, making him appear almost unreal. Somehow, without realizing it, hours passed between them in conversation. Aryan spoke softly, asking questions about her childhood, her fears, her dreams, as though he wanted to memorize every part of her soul. And strangely, Palak answered everything. It felt less like meeting a stranger and more like remembering someone she had known forever. From that night onward, everything changed. Every evening, Palak found herself drawn back towards the mansion, no matter how much she tried resisting. Aryan waited for her there every night among the ruins, speaking to her beneath candlelight while storms raged outside. Around him, the world seemed distant and meaningless. Dr. Zayan quickly noticed her change. Palak became quieter, paler, distracted. Dark circles formed beneath her eyes, and sometimes she stared blankly into space as though listening to whispers only she could hear. When she finally told Dr. Zayan about Aryan, fear crossed his face instantly. "Palak, nobody lives in that mansion." "Aryan does," she replied softly. "You don't understand him." That night, Zayan secretly followed her to the mansion, but the moment he entered the ruined hall, an invisible force threw him violently against the wall. Aryan stood beside the fireplace, his glowing green eyes suddenly filled with something dark and terrifying. "Leave," he said coldly, his voice no longer sounding human. Zayan stared in horror as shadows began moving unnaturally behind Aryan like living creatures. "Palak," Zayan whispered desperately, "that thing isn't human." But Palak couldn't stay away anymore. The farther she tried running from Aryan, the closer he seemed to become. Sometimes she heard him whispering her name in the darkness, even when he wasn't there. The villagers eventually revealed the horrifying truth. Aryan was not a man. He was a jinn that had haunted the mansion for over 100 years after falling in love with a human girl who rejected him. Since then, he had waited in darkness, searching for another soul to love him. Yet, even after learning the truth, Palak's heart still belonged to him. One stormy night, Aryan finally took Palak deep inside the hidden chambers beneath the mansion, where ancient symbols covered the walls and candles burned with unnatural green flames. "I waited centuries for you," he whispered, touching her face gently. "And now you are mine." Days later, Palak disappeared completely. Her friends searched desperately, while Dr. Zayan and the villagers turned to Baba Rahim for help. But when they finally found Palak standing beside Aryan inside the collapsing mansion, wearing an old white dress with her curly hair flowing wildly around her pale face, she no longer looked fully human. And as thunder shook the heavens above them, Aryan revealed his true form, not a beautiful, lonely man, but something ancient, monstrous, and heartbroken that had spent centuries hiding behind a human face.